Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me today. To reiterate, my name is
Yeah,
Annie. I created Sustainability Beyond the Lab to showcase sustainable innovations and make them more accessible, as well as highlighting the barriers that prevent their scale up. To start, could you please give a brief introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit about your research, especially at Virginia Tech?
thank you very much. I'm Afolabi Olayiwola. I am a PhD candidate at Virginia Tech Chemistry Department. I've been in the Professor Frankling's lab for about 4 years now, 24 years now, actually. And so far, I've been working on engineering anode materials. So anode materials are like the negative materials in lithium-ion batteries, sodium-ion batteries, and so on, like that. And I also work on engineering electrolyte to try to control the interfacial chemistry, which is found on the surface of the anode, and also try to tune the superficial structure. Basically, what I'm trying to do is to enhance the electrochemical performance of lithium and sodium ion batteries. And lastly, I also work on silicon and silicon carbon materials, which is uh, the next focus of anodes. We can say it's next focus because a lot of companies are looking into that now. So I also work on silicon and silicon carbon. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for giving that little overview. For audiences that might not be familiar with like battery materials, or your past work in hydrometallurgy, what problem is this field working to solve, and why is it important for the future of clean energy?
All right. Yeah, thank you for that question. So for batteries, the problem is that, so for example, for sodium ion batteries, so we can't use graphite as an anode material for sodium ion batteries because of the thermodynamic instability and the fact that it forms this, we have this small capacity
Mhm.
in graphite. I don't know what's happening with my voice, but
It's
so
okay.
basically, um, we can't store enough charges in graphite. And for this reason, we want to use we want to try to find another type of anode material. And that is where materials like hard carbon, soft carbon come in. And for my work, I make these hard carbon materials. So basically, what we mean by hard carbon materials is that they are very disordered. Compared to graphite has what we call well-arranged graphene layers, which are kind of like stacked on each other, really well arranged. And graphite only undergoes what we call intercalation. So intercalation only means that the charge goes into the interlayer spacing through the like stays in the middle of the graphene layers. For
Mhm.
hard carbon, because we get our hard carbon from sources like biomass, like coal tar pitch, and so on. So because of this reason, they have these precursors. They have pores. So these pores enable us to have different type of storage mechanisms for sodium. And for this reason, if you try hard carbon with sodium ion batteries, we can have a higher specific capacity. That is, we can store more charges in hard carbon because we can engineer both the interlayer spacing. We can look at engineering the microstructure entirely, like the pore structure, look at the closed pores, the open pores, and all of that. And also the surface engineering also, which is also something that we look at. And for hydrometallurgy, basically what we want is a green process. So we want to achieve a green process, something where we don't generate lots of wastewater and where we don't emit CO2. So that is the whole premise of the work I used to do on hydrometallurgy is to reduce wastewater because wastewater can be acidic, can be alkaline,
Yeah.
and this is going to affect the environment in the long run. And also, you also want to avoid generating CO2 during the roasting process, or maybe you're doing an electrolysis process and you're giving off gases. You want to eliminate CO2 because we want to avoid global warming at the end of the day, because if we accumulate a lot of CO2 up there in the atmosphere, you and I know what happens. So basically, that is all we've been trying to solve with both hydrometallurgy and battery material design.
Yeah. It's really interesting to hear your work on both like anode materials, as well as your past work in hydrometallurgy. Are there any products that you worked on that you are particularly excited about or feel that is very innovative?
Yeah, so there is this project that I'm working on still.
Mhm.
It's a project funded by the Advanced Research Projects Energy Department, which we call it APA-E. So it is based on we trying to make this material from coal. So basically, we're using coal.
Oh.
The current focus is on coal, and
Mhm.
coal we can use coal to make different things. We can do a lot of mineral extraction. You can get magnets from these minerals that you can extract from coal. But for our work, what we try to do with coal is that we try to make carbon out of it.
Oh.
And this material is so interesting because previously I did not know how complex coal could
Mhm.
be. But working on this project has kind of like showed me how complex coal can be, even though it's found everywhere. I mean, not everywhere, but it's something that we mine. But the fact that we can do these different things with coal and try to engineer the microstructure of coal to give us a high performing anode material. And so far, we've been able to achieve some success in trying to design this good anode material. And currently, we have this provisional patent, which we filed recently for this work. Anyway, the overall idea is that we want to lower the cost of anode material
Mhm.
and also decrease the reliance of the United States on foreign imports of anode materials. Because if we're successful in scaling up this material on a pilot scale and industrial scale, then we can move on to using our method or iterating this method to make high quality graphite, which is
Mhm.
also like going to be something groundbreaking. And so far, I mean, a lot of people have done different work on coal, but the fact that we can do this in the United States from locally sourced coal raw materials is really something that's exciting. I'm really happy about the progress of the work so far.
Mhm. That's really interesting, your project, working on coal. I'm also very surprised how like complex it is as well. Focusing more on batteries, one challenge is that many next generation batteries is balancing performance, cost, lifespan, and sustainability of the materials. How does your research approach that trade-off, or how do you view it?
Yeah, so you mentioned lifespan, which is the cycle life. You mentioned the cost and high specific capacity, which is the energy density and all
Mhm.
that. So for us, in terms of cost, if you look at coal, coal is relatively cheap because it's from the earth crust. We have like huge coal deposits in the United States and also in so many other countries. So first of all, we want to try to lower the cost of the entire battery, starting from the anode itself. So coal is like last time I checked, the price of bituminous coal was really low compared to the other types of coal like anthracite and so on. And all of this together is that we want to try to halve the price of the anode material.
Mhm.
And the entire from there we can then look at increasing the performance, which is the energy density. So from here, if you're engineering our carbon material, basically what we've been doing is to tune the microstructure whereby we can have more specific capacity, basically by different engineering processes. Maybe we want to increase surface area here, we want to tune the pore structure there, we want to try to tune the D-spacing. So that is how we've been trying to solve the challenge of the performance side of it. And in terms of cycle life, I would say that so far, based on what I've seen so far, hard carbon can be stable for as long as possible. And based on our test, we've been also able to like test this carbon that I've been able to like work on at low temperature, as low as minus 20 degrees Celsius. And the loss in the energy has been very, very encouraging in the sense that we did not really lose quite a lot of energy. We've been able to like get like really good performance at minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is also part of some of the milestones of the project that we work on. So far, I would say based on the project, we've been able to solve most of the challenging questions of cost, of performance
Mhm.
at normal temperature, like at room temperature, and at minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is, mostly what happens during winter. So, and then in cycle life, it's also really promising in the sense that we can cycle for as long as possible. And the capacity retention, which is how we retain the capacity over time, how
Hmm.
the battery retains its performance over time. Um, that has also been encouraging so far. So far so good. Everything looks really promising.
Mhm. It's really interesting. Moving on to more of the scaling up aspect, what do you see as kind of the biggest challenges preventing battery technologies from moving from laboratory research into widespread commercial use? And would you say that it's mostly economic, based on the scientific innovation itself, public opinion, or policy, or maybe a combination of all of these things?
So I would say it's a combination of all of them. First, I would say first of all, excuse me. So batteries are very interesting materials in the sense that the components of the batteries, they are scarce raw materials. For
Mm.
example, for lithium-ion batteries, we have nickel and cobalt, which we know they are sourced from certain parts of the world where we've had like social issues, and we also have like human rights issues based on the mining and the use of child labor and all that. So that's one of the problems. And the other problem is the fact that these raw materials are controlled by a certain part of the world. This can trigger geopolitical issues in the sense that, if the country that has these raw materials decides not to sell to the world, it could trigger a scarcity, basically a supply chain issue. And so that is one of them, which is the reason why we have sodium ion batteries now. Is trying to scale up sodium ion batteries because we have sodium resources almost everywhere.
Mhm.
However, sodium has not been able to catch up with the energy density level of lithium ion batteries, which I mean, I believe it is going to get there at some point. So the other one you mentioned is policy. Yeah, so as someone who has been privileged to live in different countries, I've lived in Nigeria and West Africa, I've lived in
Oh, wow.
China, now I'm living in the US.
Mhm.
I would say the government has a lot to do in terms of making things easy to scale up technologies. For example, um, we have to reduce the expectation that we have of these manufacturers. For example, they cannot actually deal with all the problems. For example, we've had companies that want to deal with all the supply chain, all the steps from mining to processing to production of the batteries. That is a lot of work, right? So I believe if government policy can incentivize, I don't know if that's the right word, like to give incentives to different companies to try to come into the business and focus on certain parts of
Mhm.
the battery manufacturing industry. I believe this is going to help with the scale up of these technologies. And the other part that's also challenging is the science of it all. So, science is a very difficult work, which is why we have the Advanced Research Project Agency Energy, which is APAE, because they deal with very tough projects, very tough work. um, Science is tough, and sometimes things don't go the way you want.
Mhm.
But from there, we learn what does not work and what works. And the people that are going to come after us will know what we have done so far and also improve. So sometimes it's kind of hard to scale up based on the chemistry of the process itself, but so far, so good, I would say. In terms of science, things look really promising because now we have lots of tools at our disposal in terms of characterization techniques. Now we also have the AI, which I believe a lot of people are leveraging to answer these some of these tough questions and to make the scientific reasoning easier.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then before we wrap up, is there anything during the interview that we didn't get to discuss, or you think that it's very
Hmm.
important for people to know about batteries or sustainability in general?
I think it will be the fact that for the negative side of the batteries, it could come from almost anything, like our daily activities, specifically carbon. Let me focus on carbon because that's what I
Mhm.
work on. So from our clothes, from the fruit wastes, from banana peel, from orange waste, from the bark, from the back of trees, and so on. All these are like precursor materials, which can end up being very useful materials for making batteries. So basically, what batteries does is that it's almost like turning our lemons into lemonades.
Mhm.
So basically, we're taking our waste to make energy. So we tune this waste and use it to make energy, which is part of why we have coal. If you look at coal, people describe it as a dirty material. And truly, if you put on a glove and you touch the coal powder, you see how fast it stains the gloves.
Mm.
But when you convert this coal material into these valuable things like carbon, graphite, and so on, these things actually helps to change our lives. Use them in battery materials, you can make graphite, which is already commercialized. So basically, what batteries does is to make our life easier, whereby we turn all the lemons that we have, those things that we think, oh, this does not taste great, but we can actually convert those waste into something valuable. And that is what batteries is all about. So, and we are also trying to make batteries safer through the fact that we now have aqueous batteries, coming up. So a lot of new technologies are coming. So I just want people not to be skeptical about batteries because online I see a lot of stories about batteries in terms of safety, and I just hope that society would have more belief in science, and from there, hopefully, we can get to the promised land.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing both your research as well as your perspective on scaling technologies. It was very interesting hearing about your research, for example, on like coal materials. And yeah,
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a nice conversation.